2, 3, 4.
Hi everyone, this is Jewish Talk coming to you from NASA Community College on 90.3 WHPC, also streaming on the iHeart and the iTunes app. This program is later archived on Spreaker.com. So, hi there, my name is Rabbi Perl. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. It all depends on when you are listening. Today I'm going to dedicate our program to a giant who passed away on this past Friday in Jerusalem, and also about an amazing giant who continues to live as well. Last Friday we lost a giant, Rabbi Adin Evan Israel Steinsaltz. Rabbi Adin Evan Steinsaltz was one-of-a-kind genius and Torah scholar who authored over 60 books and brilliant commentary on the entire Tanakh, on Rambam, Tanya, on Jewish philosophy and sociology. His classic work of Kabbalah, the 13-petaled rose, was first published in 1980 and now appears in 8 languages. He passed away on Friday in Jerusalem at the age of 83 years old. Rabbi Steinsaltz was born in Jerusalem in 1937 to secular parents. He became religious during his teenage years and eventually ended up learning in the Chabad yeshiva in Lud, while also studying mathematics, physics, and chemistry at Hebrew University. At the age of 24, he became Israel's youngest school principal. He also established Yeshivat Makor Chaim in 1984 and Yeshiva Tekoa in 1999, plus yeshivas in the former Soviet Union. Now, his most monumental work was a Hebrew translation and commentary on the Talmud. It took him decades, 40 years or so of work, but in November of 2010, he became the first person in modern history to single-handedly complete a commentary on the entire Talmud Bavli. Parts of his commentary have been translated into several other languages. Yet despite his brilliance and wisdom, he was unassuming, loving, and gentleman who was always smiling and always available for others in need. In this week's Torah reading, we read of the death of another giant, Aaron the high priest, a man of love who, despite his greatness and holiness, was always there for his people, always accessible, always willing to help a family dealing with internal issues. Now, the death of Aaron is written immediately after the description of Moses breaking the first tablets. Now, you probably know the story of Moses. He came down the mountain. Upon seeing the golden calf, he grabbed the 2 tablets and smashed them on the ground. How could Moses destroy something so holy? The tablets were the handiwork of God, and the inscription was God's inscription, engraved on the tablets. Even though the Jews had sinned and were no longer worthy of receiving this precious gift, how does that justify Moses destroying something that God made himself? It's a very important question. The Medrash says that after the Jews sinned, Moses looked and he saw the letters flying up from the tablets. He said, "How can I give the Jews the tablets? They have no value." This means that once the writing of God has left the tablets, its holiness has also disappeared, and there was nothing of value left to the stones that he was holding in his hands. There's a fascinating correlation, my dear friends, between the death of a tzaddik, of a righteous person, and the breaking of the tablets. Both are physical bodies, the tablets and the body of a person. And the sapphire tablets are the handiwork of God. So both our bodies and those tablets are the handiwork of God. And just like the first tablets were made directly by God himself, so too, my friends, the human body is a magnificent and brilliant creation designed and developed directly by God himself. Let me think of it in the following manner. Think of a silver cup. Once it has been formed into a functional vessel, it is no longer judged by the material it is made of, but by its functionality and its design. So too, once a soul is placed within the body, we are no longer judged by an inherent value of our vessel. When we look at someone, We look at our functionality, right? Our contributions, our actions, our behavior as a living person. We don't look at a person's body, we look at the person, what he's accomplishing. So the first tablets were broken because once the tablets, the purpose and the function of the tablets, flew away, the stone no longer had worth. And so too, once the soul of a person goes back to heaven, the body is laid to rest, because it no longer has any functionality or ability to be of use to the world anymore. So I share with you today, people like Rabbi Adin Evan Yisrael inspire me because of how much they were able to accomplish in their lifetimes. Because people like this great rabbi, they use their minds and their bodies to teach and to inspire so many. And great people use their time here below to impact thousands of people, and they lived a life of absolute commitment and dedication to the writing of God. So their bodily actions became such powerful conduits of a powerful divine goodness. That is why their death leaves such a strong void and emptiness behind, like the tablets without the words. So once we, the living, thank God, we have a soul placed in our bodies, we are no longer just the handiwork of God. What's the purpose of us being alive, thank God, having a body and having a soul? Having the soul is like the handwriting of God inside of us, because we carry Hashem's words inside of us. And we carry the message to the world that is shining within us. The whole purpose of a human being, for every one of us, is to shine the word of Hashem into this world. So, I would say, let's not drop the tablets again. All the life, every moment of a life, we should feel that way, that we are like the tablets upon which are written God's words, which of course is our soul. A little bit more about this great rabbi and what we can learn from him. He was a world-famous Talmudist, a Kabbalist, an educator, a community rabbi, a philosopher, a prolific author, and above all, he was a devoted chassid. He was a devoted follower and student of Rabbi Schneerson, the Lubavitcher Rebbe, who was internationally regarded, this rabbi, Rabbi Steinsaltz, regarded as one of the leading rabbis of this century. He was once hailed by the Time magazine as, and I quote, once in a millennium scholar. Can you imagine? Once in a millennium scholar. He was born in 1937 in Jerusalem to Abraham, Moshe, and Leah Steinsaltz, who were Polish immigrants with avowedly secular left-leaning worldviews. Young Adin was a very curious as a child, and growing up in the Kataman neighborhood of the Holy City, and he would recall how he explored the religious texts he first encountered with the same vigor and the voraciousness that he had applied to the writings of communist and socialist thinkings that his parents had proffered to him. So with a determination that closely matched his intellect, the teen won his parents' permission to study Talmud and Hasidic philosophy full-time at the Chabad Yeshiva in Lud. There, he was exposed to the teachings of the Rabbi, Rabbi Menachem Mendel Schneerson of righteous memory, who had recently taken up the mantle of leadership of the Chabad movement. We talk about way back, following the passing of his father-in-law, his predecessor, the Frierdiker Rebbe of righteous memory. So in the model of many great rabbinic scholars throughout Jewish history, Steinsaltz complemented his religious studies with immersion in scientific study as well. And he studied chemistry and physics at the Hebrew University in Jerusalem before entering the field of education. And as I said, he was Israel's youngest school principal at the age of just at the early age of 24. In 1965, he married Chaya Sarah Azimov, the daughter of Rabbi Chaim Hillel Azimov, director of the Chabad Day School in Paris. And I remember Rabbi Azimov. He was a very important person when I was in Paris And I remember meeting him. This is Rabbi Azimov, who was the father-in-law of Rabbi Steinsaltz. So in the Rebbe, Rabbi Steinsaltz found in the Rebbe more than just an intellectual and spiritual guide and Torah teacher. And he once said, I firmly believe that the Rebbe possessed some sort of supernatural capability, that he was in contact with another state of being, which I do not hesitate to call the divine. This is how Rabbi Steinsaltz wrote in his renowned 2014 biography of the Rebbe. He was called My Rebbe. And he said like this, the first time I met the Rebbe, I felt his intense personality, his almost complete otherness. Now his first meeting with the Rebbe goes back in 1970, when he was the age of 33. Interesting, he was sent here to meet the Rebbe, to bring greetings to the Rebbe as a representative of then the President Zalman Shazar, the President of Israel. The Steinsaltzes had 3 children, Esti, Meni, and Amichai. Besides providing guidance in his Torah studies and communal leadership, the Rebbe provided fatherly care and divine inspiration advice to Rabbi Steinsaltz in personal matters as well. In 1989, the Rebbe advised him, him and his wife, that the family changed their name from Steinsaltz, which suggests bitterness, like Stein, strong, Salz, salt, to a Hebrew alternative. And that's how he became known. He changed his name to Evan Yisrael. For many, this great rabbi will be best remembered for translating and elucidating the entire Talmud in modern Hebrew and then English. An unrivaled solo feat he began around the time of his marriage and completed decades later, over 40 years for him to finish this project. His classic work on Kabbalah is the 13 Petaled Rose, and I should encourage everyone to go out there and buy that copy. It was first published in 1980 and has been reprinted in 8 languages. In all, he authored more than 60 books, hundreds of articles, including groundbreaking translations. Now, he was a frail man. I met him. I was once in an event where he was speaking. He had a wry smile and a soft voice. He was known for his caustic sense of humor and a disdain for pretense. An admirer recalls once complimenting him after a class on Talmud for beginners, innocently telling the rabbi how much he enjoyed it. "You were not supposed to enjoy it," was his reply. "You were supposed to learn something." He was the recipient of several prestigious awards, including the Israel Prize. He served as a scholar in residence at the Woodrow Wilson Center for International Studies in Washington and at the Institute of Advanced Studies in Princeton. He received amazing. The outpouring around the world now is unbelievable. He received the President of Israel's Prize, the National Jewish Book Award in 2012, and for making the study of Talmud more accessible. Thanks to him, the whole concept that the Talmud was no more a closed book only for the very learned and the very scholarly, it was now available. He actually received the Yaki Yerushalayim, the Worthy Citizen of Jerusalem Medal, in 2017, and he received, including many honorary doctorates from Yeshiva University, Ben Gurion University of the Negev, Bar Ilan University, Brandeis University, and Florida International University. I share all of this because you see that we, dear friends, as I said, as long as we're alive, our tablets, our bodies, has the words of God, has an neshama, we must make a difference. And when we learn about great people like Rabbi Steinsaltz, who just passed away, it inspires me and inspires all of us to make good use and to say every single day, what am I doing? What am I doing to impact the world? Now, since the late 1950s, this Rabbi Steinsaltz, Rabbi Evan Yisrael, regularly taught a class on Chabad philosophy every Thursday at 10:40 p.m. It was originally presented by Rabbi Zevin, which it was a class that attracted the upper crust of Israeli intellectual society, including Shazar, who attended while he was in office. At the Rebbe's request, at the Rabbi Schneerson's behest, he served as the rabbi of the Tzemach Tzedek synagogue, the only Jewish place of worship in Jerusalem's old city that survived the Jordanian occupation between 1948 and 1967. He began the task a few years after liberation and continued making this long trek from his home to the old city every Shabbos until his frail health prevented him from doing so. In 1989, he founded a yeshiva in Moscow, in the post-Glasnost Moscow. Can you imagine? At one time, he felt that he was overwhelmed by his crushing workload and came to the Rabbi asking which duties he should drop. The Rabbi replied, "Continue doing everything and add more projects." It was a directive that he took to heart, and he remained one of the world's most prolific Jewish authors, publishing commentaries on the widest of topics into his 80s. In time, his children joined him in his publishing and educational endeavors, and now the Steinsaltz Center is currently directed by his son, Rabbi Meni. So, dear friends, he was a man of great spiritual courage, deep knowledge, and a profound thought that brought the Talmud to Am Yisrael in a clear and accessible Hebrew and English. And this was tweeted out, a message from Israeli President Reuven Rivlin. And now I'd like to continue telling about a beautiful person, thank God alive, and the difference he made as well. Again, my theme today is appreciating who we are and how much difference we can make. We're talking about Jay Feinberg, one of the most soft-spoken, humble people. At an event, it's called Gift of Life, an organization that he founded, and he serves as the CEO. He likes to blend in. That's the humility of this person. While he's modest and would never tell you directly, it's not an exaggeration to say that he's personally responsible for saving thousands of lives. This Jay Feinberg is the visionary behind the Gift of Life, an organization that has conducted over 10,500 bone marrow drives in 49 countries, has 375,000 registered donors, and has found 17,000 matches and has facilitated over 3,600 transplants. But of all of that almost didn't happen. In 1991, during his first year of law school, Jay was diagnosed with leukemia. His family was told that he would need a bone marrow transplant to survive, but there were no matching donors in his family or in the entire national registry. For 4 years, while they watched Jay's health deteriorate, his tenacious family conducted drives around the globe. They tested 60,000 donors and found matches for hundreds of patients along the way. Finally, they found one for Jay. When he recovered, Jay was determined to ensure others wouldn't have to wait so long for a transplant or risk not finding a match at all. So instead of returning to law school, he used his own experience to found an organization dedicated to educating and encouraging people to add themselves to the bone marrow registry and to improve the efficiency of finding matches and coordinating transplants within the Jewish community and beyond. So this week marks the 25th anniversary of Jay's own transplant, his new lease on life. Not only is he personally celebrating and feeling grateful to be alive, we should all be appreciative of the gift of Jay to humanity and to all of us. So while Jay and his story are extraordinary, there are other remarkable people without whom this story wouldn't have had a happy ending. See, Jay's condition had worsened terribly, but friends of his in Milwaukee refused to give up hope and organized one last drive. It was a young lady from Illinois, her name is Becky Keller, volunteered at the drive, but due to her fear of needles, decided not to get tested herself. The drive was packing up at the end of the day, having tested 130 new people, hopeful one would be Jay's life-saving match. At the last moment, Becky said to herself, "It is silly to have come and helped out, but not get tested myself." She overcame her fear and was the last of 60,000 people tested at the very last drive for Jay. You guessed it, She turned out to be Jay's perfect match, and the transplant took place a short time later at the Fred Hutchinson Cancer Research Center in Seattle. A determined family set out to find Jay a match. 2 friends refused to give up hope, and one young lady overcame the fear to do an act of kindness that not only saved Jay, but by extension has now saved the lives of thousands and given hope to leukemia patients around the world. Yes, dear friends, we've just concluded the darkest period of the year, the 3 weeks, from 17th day of Tammuz all the way through Tisha B'Av. We mourn the tragedies, the atrocities, the suffering, and the loss that throughout the millennia. And our rabbis tell us that what precipitated all of this was baseless hatred, a lack of kindness, a self-centeredness that corrupted the world to the extent that, all of these things happened. So the antidote to the key to rebuilding the world, to hasten the coming of Mashiach, is to do the opposite, acts of selfless and baseless kindness. As King David says, the world is built on kindness. And now we've transitioned from those 3 weeks, from the mourning, the destruction, to now the 7 weeks of consolation. And we have to say to ourselves, what have we learned from all of this? Of course, we want Mashiach now. We want the rebuilding of the temple and the ultimate comfort from everybody out of this COVID and out of all these limitations, and a world filled with goodness and kindness and no more wars and no more famines and all the uncivility that we have today. But what do we learn? What do we learn from Jay? What if Jay's family hadn't tried? What if Jay's family didn't run one more drive? What if Becky hadn't overcome the fear? Think about this. Can you imagine what would be? Who knows the consequences? The what if created by neglecting whatever act of kindness that we can do next. Who may desperately need? Think about this. Let's learn from them. Let's think of the consequences if we ourselves, when offered an opportunity to do some kindness, whatever, decide, it doesn't fit in my schedule. What do I need to do this for? I've done enough already. What more? Can you imagine? Who knows the consequences of that? What if we were to neglect the opportunity, an act of kindness that we can do next? Who may desperately need a phone call, a checking in, someone to shop for them, or cook a meal, send flowers to, for no reason, or to offer to learn on the phone? There is no limit to the possible acts of kindness that can enrich or even save the lives of others, even when physical proximity is difficult or impossible, as we are currently seeing. So, overcoming a fear or an inhibition, let's leave the comfort zone. Let's reach outside of ourselves to do something kind for another person. Who knows what life we might not only touch but save, and by extension, how many thousands of other lives too. This is so important for us to consider in making a difference in this world. And that is why I'm dedicating our program today to both, thank God to Jay Feinberg in his Gift of Life organization, continues to save lives, and may God bless him with long life, even as we remember now the great Rabbi Adin Steinsaltz, who passed away this past Friday in Jerusalem, because the Jewish people lost a great teacher, a great giant in Rabbi Steinsaltz, Evan Yisrael, through what he accomplished throughout his life. And I often think of myself and the people around me and all of us, how important it is for us to learn from great people, to learn what to do with one's time, and to be able to look at the end of a week and say, what did I accomplish? What did I accomplish? I accomplished a few dollars came into the bank account. Is that what we are here for? My friend, this is a necessary part of life, sometimes inconvenience part of life. The real reason why we're on this world, as long as the neshama, God's handwriting, is inside of us, in the tablets of life, in our bodies, is to make a difference, to let it shine. We know that when Moses came down the second time with the second tablets, right? We discussed how the first tablets were smashed, but he went up again, and then 80 days later, which was to coincide with Yom Kippur, Day of Forgiveness, God forgave us for that sin. And once again, we received the second set of the tablets. And the Torah tells us that when he came down, people were kind of terrified because his face was shining. He's shining. In fact, Michelangelo, made a mistake in thinking that Moses had horns because the Torah used the word keranor. There were like these coming out of his head. There was these lights coming out of his head, and he took it literally that it was the horns, and that's where these ideas of horns come in. But it was actually rays of light radiating from his face. And the question is, what happened to the first time? The first time he was carrying God's hewed out stones. The tablets were God's handiwork. It were God's words, as we discussed, written on there. How come his face wasn't shining then? What made the second set so different that when he came down, his face was shining so valiantly and so beautifully that he was required to wear a mask? And the answer is, my friend, because something had changed in Moses between the first and the second. He had interceded. God was about, as the Torah tells us, to change and say, I'm going to start a new nation from you, Moses. I'm going to get rid of all the other guys. They blew it. They messed up. Moses interceded and he said, Hashem, either you save my people or write me out of the book. Moses put his own life in danger. It wasn't about himself. It was about his people. It was about what he could do to save his people. And because he had stepped out of his own boundaries, out of his own limitations, and had stood up to help somebody else, in this case his people, that's when the bars of light started to shine from his face. And so too, I say, dear friends, we're all wearing masks similar to what Moses did. And make sure that behind the mask is our face are shining. And I think that our face is shining because you look at people's eyes. You don't have a chance to look at their mouths. You have a good view of their eyes. And as I mentioned this week, our eyes have eyeballs. And the eyeballs, say our sages, is symbolic of the earth, the planet Earth. And when we look at someone else and we look at their eyes, we're actually seeing into their soul. Because the eyeball is the earth, and the iris, and the whole eye itself is what's on the world itself. Every one of us carries the planet Earth. Every one of us can make a difference in this world. So on this very special day, let us all remember the great contribution that Rabbi Evan Yisrael Rabbi Adin Steinsaltz made to the world in 83 years. A total revolution in learning and encouragement in so many different ways. And let us remember those who are alive, who are making a difference, like in Jay Feinberg, who not only did he save his own life, was his own life saved, but he went on to, and continues to go on to save so many other people's lives. All we are asked to do, dear friends, is to make a difference in the world around us. This is your host, Rabbi Perl, wishing you a wonderful day. Thank you so much.